here. Bernie Sanders on Tuesday requested a recount in the close Kentucky presidential primary against frontrunner Hillary Clinton. State election officials said on Tuesday. The recanvass will take place at all 120 county boards of election on Thursday, according to the Kentucky Secretary of State, Allison Grimes, who, by the way, is an ardent Hillary Clinton supporter. Clinton won Kentucky by just 1,924 votes, according to the unofficial totals posted on the Secretary of State's election page. Okay, so now naturally people on Hillary's team are going, why did you just accept losing with grace, blah, 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 blah. No, he really should do this recount, and there's a very specific reason, in my opinion, why he should have this recount. Because I'm not sure whether it was with 95% of the vote reporting or 98% of the vote reporting, but he was up over 1,000 votes at that point. And then in the last, whatever it was, 1% or 5%, it flipped to her being up over 1,000 votes. Now, anybody who knows how these things work knows that that is highly, highly unlikely. In fact, when it was with 95 to 98% reporting, it was almost like, oh, okay, it's time to call it for Bernie because he was up by a significant enough amount where it was like, oh, it would be highly statistically unlikely for her to come back and win now, and then she won. Now, I'm not saying it's foul play. All this stuff would need to be proven. There would need to be, evidence presented. But there's one way to try to get a more solid answer, and that would be to do a recount. Now, who knows? Maybe when the recount's done, she ends up still winning, and that's the official result, and that's the end of it. But for the sake of, as Bernie goes on to say, by the way, for the sake of transparency, it does make sense to do the recount, and this is something that I certainly support, and I see no downside to it. And if, Hillary people really care about getting the right answer and the proper answer, well, then all of you should support it as well, instead of trying to censor and shut it down and move along. And honestly, the response to this from the Hillary campaign has reminded me a lot of the response to Nevada. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that's right, Nevada. Now, I was thinking the caucus, but I mean the convention. Because at the subsequent convention, so Hillary won the actual caucus. Then at the subsequent conventions, which I know the system in Nevada is absurd, I would get rid of all of that and just make it a primary. But at the subsequent conventions, Bernie picked up delegates at the first one. And then at the second one, the Nevada Democratic Party just snubbed 58 of his delegates. They're like, okay, you don't count. They're like, what the fuck? They're like, paperwork, something, registration, go away. And they're like, okay, no. So all the Bernie supporters were loud, and they got angry, and they were screaming. Rightly so. I would scream, too, in that scenario. And what was all of the discussion about after the fact? Violent Bernie supporters! Violent! They're like Trump supporters. They're so violent. They were throwing chairs. Okay, that's not true. They weren't even throwing chairs. There's one video of a guy picking up a chair. Another Bernie supporter comes down, grabs a chair, puts it down, and hugs the person. There was no chair throwing. And they go, well, there was one thread of, one of the officials in the Nevada Democratic Party. Okay, first of all, we all condemn threats. That's obvious. We're all against threats. We don't even know that it was a Bernie supporter, though. Have you heard of Correct the Record? Have you heard of the troll army they've unleashed online to try to make Bernie supporters look bad? The whole point, they're spending over $1 million to do that. The whole point is to make Bernie supporters look like they're fucking crazy, and let's correct the record, and anytime anybody says anything anti-Hillary, oh my God, lash out and attack him. So I don't even know if that was a Bernie supporter. So this idea of, they're violent, and this has been used to generalize and say they're all violent. Right, the people who support the most liberal one in the race, who's more anti-violence than anybody, and anti-war, somehow they're particularly prone to violence. I know. So the entire conversation now has been shifted to Bernie supporters are violent, as opposed to saying, hey, wasn't the Democratic Nevada convention kind of fucked up and rigged? Now, I get it, guys. I already told you. I just said it. That I wouldn't even do a caucus. Bernie Sanders has not closed the door yet on Kentucky. Reuters explained